Gold prospector Rob Parsons consistently pulls gold from remote rivers. Not occasionally, not by chance, but trip after trip, in places most people refuse to venture. The reason behind his success isn't superior gear or good fortune. It's that Rob understands something about remote rivers that nearly every other prospector has completely wrong. Well, I wasn't really expecting it, but there's bloody gold right here in this crack. Two little pickers just like that. The farther you travel from the nearest road, the more gold sits waiting, resting undisturbed in bedrock crevices, in some cases untouched since the 1800s, simply because nobody has been willing to walk far enough to reach it. This piece breaks down exactly how Rob locates that gold, where he searches, how he reads the river, and the single technique that sets him apart from everyone working the easier stretches of water. Why remote rivers change everything. When Rob arrives at a remote river, he doesn't see it the way a casual weekend prospector does. Where a recreational digger sees a stretch of flowing water, Rob sees a history of pressure, how frequently this ground has been worked, how recently, and what that means for what's still sitting there waiting. Accessible river sections get hit hard. Car parks, short walking tracks, sandbars within comfortable reach. These spots have seen prospectors return every season for decades, sometimes for 150 years. Whatever gold sat in the obvious locations has long since been taken. Remote rivers are an entirely different proposition. A system that demands a full day of hiking through dense, difficult country to reach has experienced almost no modern prospecting pressure. Weekend enthusiasts don't carry multi-day camp setups for an uncertain reward. Commercial operations don't haul heavy machinery into roadless terrain unless the grades make it financially worthwhile. That leaves remote sections to the small handful of people willing to hike in and stay. Rob targets these systems deliberately, precisely because of what that low-pressure history means for the gold. In a remote river, the fine gold too small for older processing equipment to capture is still there. The deep crevice gold too awkward to extract with basic hand tools is still there. The bedrock shelves that early miners judged not worth the extra effort are still loaded. Moving through a remote section, Rob reads what he's looking at immediately. Black sand packed into a bedrock crack below the normal flood line. A crevice too tight for a casual pass. Material that has been building flood cycle after flood cycle for well over 100 years. The river didn't relocate that gold, it delivered it. And that delivery has been running uninterrupted since before anyone with modern equipment ever showed up to collect it. Looks like things have shifted around a bit. There's actually a lot of sand over here, and there used to be a lot of heavy material. Setting up in the field. Rob hikes into his target system carrying everything on his back. Tools, food, safety equipment, shelter, the complete kit for a multi-day stay in country with no resupply and no easy way out. Weight discipline isn't a preference out here. It's the fundamental requirement that determines which gear actually makes the journey. When he reaches the river, his first decision isn't where to start prospecting. It's where to set up camp. He positions himself on the bank as close as possible to the most promising bedrock section. In dense bush terrain, that sometimes means clearing a spot on a slope just to stay within 50 meters of the water. Every extra minute spent walking between the tent and the river is time he isn't working bedrock. That closeness matters for a second reason. Rob repositions constantly. If a section of folded bedrock 200 meters upstream is showing better structural features than where he started, tighter crevices, more exposed layering, stronger black sand concentrations, he moves camp the same day. He doesn't commit to a fixed spot before the river has shown him what it's actually holding. A camp already on the bank makes that decision easy. He rolls up his swag, walks upstream, and sets up again. No half-day operation, no long hike back to retrieve gear. The river dictates the work. The camp follows the river. The gear reflects the same thinking. Every item is chosen based on its weight to usefulness ratio. A crevice tool and snuffer bottle weigh almost nothing. A lightweight gold pan takes up almost no space. The tools that do the real productive work are the ones that earn their place in the pack. Anything that can't justify its weight in result stays at the car. Not bad at all. Biggest piece here might be about 0.3, where gold actually hides in a river. Gold is roughly 19 times denser than water. That single physical fact controls everything about where gold ends up in any river system, and it forms the foundation of everything Rob does in the field. When a flood pushes sediment downstream, everything travels together. As the water loses energy and slows, materials begin dropping out in order of weight. Fine sand and organic debris keep moving. Coarse gravel settles out early. Gold, far denser than any of it, drops the instant the current falls below the threshold needed to carry something that heavy. It sinks straight down to the lowest available surface. In a river, that surface is bedrock. Once gold makes contact with bedrock, it stops moving. It finds whatever crack or hollow sits directly beneath it and stays there. Rob builds his entire approach around 3 categories of bedrock trap where this settling concentrates most heavily. Inside bends are the first. Current on the outside of a river bend runs fast. It scours, erodes, and undercuts the bank. Current on the inside of that same bend is slow. Rob works inside bends and doesn't stop at the gravel surface. He digs down to the bedrock beneath and works the crevices in the rock itself. The gold is at the floor, not in the sand sitting 2 feet above it. Behind large boulders is the second. A boulder sitting mid-channel creates a zone of still water immediately on its downstream face. Heavy material traveling along the riverbed gets caught in that zone and drops. Rob clears the gravel behind boulders down to where it meets bedrock, reads the crevice structure of the rock underneath, and works it thoroughly. The boulder did the concentrating. His job is to get to what it gathered. Bedrock ledges and drop-offs are the third. When flow passes over a ledge and drops to a lower level, the turbulence at the base creates a concentrated settling zone. Gold that was in motion hits that drop, loses momentum, and packs tightly at the foot of the ledge. Rob strips the coarse gravel from the base of every such formation and carefully reads the bedrock beneath it. As always, it's about clearing enough overburden to see the bedrock underneath. And if you're lucky, you might find a nice shiny piece of gold sitting right there. These locations accumulate gold through every major flood event. The concentration builds over time. Working the crevices. Early miners left the hard cracks alone. Their tools were the wrong shape, the crevices were slow and awkward to work, and richer surface ground was still available close by. They took the easy gold and moved on. That decision, made repeatedly across every gold field they ever worked, is precisely why Rob heads straight for the difficult cracks. Bedrock in active rivers is fractured, folded, and grooved by geological processes and long exposure to moving water. Every crack is a trap. As gold sinks to bedrock during high-flow events, it works its way down into those crevices and packs there alongside fine sediment and black sand. Under normal flow conditions, it doesn't come back out. It accumulates. Rob works each crevice with a hook-style crevice tool, methodically clearing packed material from the top of the crack all the way down to its full depth. Clear the surface material. Push deeper. Clear again. Nothing gets tipped back into the water. A snuffer bottle pulls fine gold and sediment out of the crack and into a collection container without losing anything to the current. Even material that looks like featureless dark silt goes into the pan, because fine gold at the bottom of a crevice is invisible until it settles out under proper examination. The depth is what separates productive crevice work from the kind that finds nothing. A crack cleaned 1 centimeter below the surface looks empty. The same crack cleaned all the way to its sealed base can hold material that has been building since before anyone with modern equipment ever worked the system. Rob works crevices to the bottom, not just the easy part. The pace is slow and deliberate. A single section of fractured bedrock can keep him occupied for hours. That isn't inefficiency. That is the method. Every crack cleaned completely is material assessed from real evidence, not skipped because the effort felt too high. Reading the bedrock itself. Not every meter of bedrock is worth the same investment of time. Before committing to a section, Rob reads the rock surface, looking for the structural features that act as natural gold concentrating machinery. Layered or folded bedrock exposed at an angle to the current creates a series of natural shelves. As water pushes heavy material along the bottom, it strikes the edges of those layers, slows down, and drops. The spaces between strata, even shallow ones, even those that look insignificant on the surface, fill with gold and black sand over time. Rob targets those edges directly, running his crevice tool into the gaps between exposed layers and reading what is compacted there. Any formation of harder rock running perpendicular to the flow acts exactly like a riffle in a sluice box, catching heavy material in the still water behind it. Rob works the downstream face of every such formation, stripping material back to the rock interface and reading what has built up there. V-shaped channels cut into the rock surface concentrate gold through geometry alone. The V forces everything in transport into a narrowing path. Gold, being the densest material present, sinks to the deepest point of the V and stays. Rob runs his crevice tool along the lowest point of those channels and reads what comes out. Hard-packed gravel resting on any flat bedrock shelf receives the same treatment. Undisturbed material at the rock interface is precisely where fine gold settles and compacts. Undisturbed gravel is the sign that the layer beneath it has never been reached by anyone before him. Identifying the right material. Rob reads 3 specific indicators when assessing a section of riverbed, and each one triggers a specific decision. Black sand is the first. Black sand is primarily magnetite, a heavy iron oxide mineral that behaves almost identically to gold in moving water. Both materials are far denser than ordinary sand and gravel. Both drop out of the current at the same points. When Rob finds a strong concentration of black sand packed into a crevice or gravel pocket, he reads it as direct confirmation that the hydraulic conditions at that location have been concentrating heavy material. He opens the crack and works it fully. The same process that deposited the magnetite deposited whatever gold was in the system too. Ironstone and heavy rock fragments are the second indicator. An unusual concentration of dense, heavy rocks gathered in one spot is not accidental. The current that moved those rocks also moved gold. Rob picks up a handful of material and actively tests its weight. A heavy pocket means he stays and works the bedrock beneath. A light pocket means he moves on without investing further time. Tightly packed, undisturbed gravel is the third. Gravel that is compacted and shows no sign of recent disturbance, no fresh rearrangement from high water, no evidence of prior prospecting. Tells Rob that the deposit has been accumulating over a long period in a gold-bearing system. That means gold has been building in that same location. He strips it to bedrock contact and reads what lies underneath. The compaction is the signal. The bedrock contact is where the reward is found. What the old-timers left behind. Rob is walking a remote creek when he spots it. A row of stacked rocks running along the bank. Too regular, too deliberate to be natural. Behind them, a low depression where overburden was removed and piled to one side. Someone worked this ground. Based on the access difficulty and the style of the earthworks, probably in the 1880s or 1890s, using a pan and a wooden rocker box. Rob doesn't walk past that. He walks straight toward it. I can see that all the overburden that was here has been stripped away. This has all just been flushed clean. I'm going to have a better scratch around here because I only ran along the edge last time. Old-timer workings are not a sign that the gold is gone. They are confirmation that the gold was there in the first place. 19th century miners weren't working at random. They read the landscape, followed the geology, and went where the indicators were strongest. If they worked a section of remote river, that section had gold. The question Rob asks is not whether gold was present. The old workings already answer that. The question is what those miners left behind. The answer falls into consistent categories. Fine gold particles too small for the sluice boxes and rocker boxes of the era to capture efficiently were lost in processing or simply passed straight through. The technology of the time had a grain size threshold. Anything below it went downstream. Deep crevice gold packed into narrow, awkward cracks below a comfortable working depth was skipped entirely. The effort per ounce was too high when richer surface ground was still available nearby. Gold-bearing sections that required more work than the returns justified at the time were bypassed in favor of easier targets. The trenches, the tailings piles, the hand-cut channels. Rob reads all of it as information. Each physical trace tells him what type of mining was done, which tells him what type of gold was targeted, which tells him exactly what type was left behind. He sets up directly over the bedrock closest to the old workings. He reaches into the crevices they skipped. He works the fine material zones their equipment couldn't capture. The old-timers didn't exhaust the ground. They drew a precise map of where to look next. The role of consistency and knowledge. Rob's results across multiple remote river systems follow a consistent pattern. Right location, right geological feature, right technique applied completely and without cutting the depth short. Gold in a river system isn't random. It obeys physics that don't change between trips or between systems. Dense material drops where water slows. Gold sinks to the lowest available surface. Fine gold packs into crevices and stays there until someone removes it. Rob applies that understanding to every river he works, and every river responds the same way because the physics doesn't negotiate. That isn't a theory. It's the result of applying the same method in the same disciplined way across terrain that looks different on the surface but behaves identically underneath. His documented practice across varied terrain, different geology, different rock types, different water volumes, produces gold consistently when the principles are applied correctly. Not luck, not instinct, not being in the right place at the right time. Applied geological understanding and method, repeated without shortcuts across every section he works. I remember this spot being very rich, but it was always so hard to move the gravels to get down to the ground. I was excited to see what was hiding here. When a section isn't producing at first pass, Rob doesn't switch techniques. He slows down. He reads the bedrock more carefully. He checks whether he has genuinely reached the bottom of the crevices he's worked, or whether he stopped short. The answer to an unproductive section is almost always more depth and more attention, not a change of location. The physics isn't optional. Gold is dense. Bedrock is the floor. Crevices are the trap. When those conditions are present and Rob works them properly, the outcome follows, because the laws governing it haven't changed since the first flood event that dropped gold into that system. The real costs of going remote. The terrain Rob works makes no allowances for comfort or error. Remote Australian river systems are snake country. Eastern browns, tiger snakes, and taipans all range near water and rank among the most venomous land snakes on the planet. Rob moves slowly through riverside vegetation. He checks every rock before placing his hands near it. He scans the ground ahead before each step. There is no antivenom available 3 hours from the nearest road. A snakebite in that country is a genuine life-threatening emergency, and Rob treats that as the baseline reality of every trip, not as some unlikely worst case. Cold water is a compounding hazard that arrives gradually. Working a river for hours with arms submerged to the shoulder, lying on wet bedrock, moving in and out of fast current. All of it drains body heat far faster than the physical effort of the work masks. By the time shivering begins, clear decision-making has already been compromised. Rob monitors his condition actively throughout every session. He comes out of the water at regular intervals regardless of how promising the section looks. He changes into dry layers at camp before he feels any need to. The management has to be proactive or it doesn't work. Isolation is what makes every other hazard more serious. A rolled ankle near a car park is a bad afternoon. The same ankle 3 hours from a road, alone with fading light and wet gear, has no simple resolution. Rob operates with a communication protocol on every trip. Someone knows exactly where he is, which drainage, which access point, and when he's expected to make contact. That is the minimum structure required for solo work in country where help cannot reach you quickly. The gold Rob finds is real. So is every hour of careful risk management that stands behind it. Jagged decomposed quartz at the bottom of a drop-off. You can see exactly why the gold would collect here. The reason it works. Rob Parsons is 3 hours from the nearest road. He's kneeling on submerged bedrock in the middle of a river no vehicle has come near today. He's gone where roads end, where phone signals vanish, where the only sound is moving water. His crevice tool is inside a crack that hasn't been touched since a miner with a rocker box decided it wasn't worth his time. His snuffer bottle is in his other hand. He's not guessing. He is working a trap that physics constructed, that time filled, and that every other prospector in the region bypassed because it required 3 hours of hiking to reach. The gold in remote rivers is predictable. It's on the bedrock. It's in the crevices. It's behind the boulders, at the base of the ledges, and at the bottom of the V-channels, wherever water slowed long enough to drop what it was carrying. Rob finds it consistently because he goes to exactly those locations and works them completely, all the way to the bottom, not just the easy part. The old-timer workings he finds aren't dead ends. They're starting points. The black sand concentrations he reads aren't background detail. They're instructions. The geological structure of every riverbed he works isn't scenery. It's information, and Rob knows exactly how to read it. The gold is there. Drop a comment below. Have you ever prospected a remote river? And what did you find? If you've tried crevice work and want to share what came out of those cracks, we want to hear it. And if you want to see how Rob decides which river systems to target before he ever laces up his boots, that's exactly what the next video covers.